All right, welcome everybody to Stewardship Through Storytelling, Part 2. Glad you could join us. My name's Dave Durham. I'm up in this window here with Stewardship Chair at Darnestown Presbyterian Church. I'll be your moderator and host for this session, and we're going to get started in just a second here. But first, I'd like Reverend Pat Jackson to lead us in prayer to open up here.
Thanks, Dave. Let's join together for a word of prayer. A woman refused to take no for an answer. She continued to demand justice day after day until the judge finally relented. A young man asked for his inheritance early, squandered it on wild living, and returned to his father in shame, only to be welcomed home with open arms. Our faith is conveyed in stories of grace, forgiveness, hope, and gratitude. So, Lord, be with us and guide us in our time together today as we explore how stories can invite our congregations into faithful generosity to glorify and serve you. In Christ Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pat. All right. We got people coming in here. We may have a few more joining us, so we're going to get started with the slide part of this presentation. We'll have both slides and videos, and let me get started with it. Okay. Tonight's agenda. This is a part 2 of what was a very good session held back on April 20th at St. Mark's Presbyterian Church, actual live session. Some of you may have been there. And where Robin Skula actually did a very good presentation. We had a very well-attended session there. I really enjoyed it, got a lot out of it. I've been starting to share some of what we've learned there with our stewardship committee, and really looking forward to implementing more of that today. So this is part 2 on Zoom video. And this way we can do a follow-up and show some of the examples of what people are doing. So just a quick introduction. I'm a member of the Stewardship Committee with National Capital Presbytery. This committee does a lot of great work. I'm excited to be on it. And we're led by our fearless chairman, Carl Madison, who you'll be hearing about different parts of this presentation. We have 2 other stewardship people, June Eakin from Warner Memorial. She will not be here tonight, but Jim Feather is from Vienna, is on tonight with us. So grateful to have them on. And we also are joined, not tonight, Pat's on here, but we have 3 Reverend pastors on our stewardship committee. I always love that perspective of getting the pastor's perspective to be able to add a different approach to what we do and help really guide us. So I think it's a well-balanced committee. Our goal as a committee really is to be a resource and of service to the churches around the presbytery. We know stewardship and generosity is an important part at every church, and that many churches do it very well, and other churches have challenges or are doing some things well. Our committee's job is to basically help what we've learned from other churches, share that with you, and help you grow in that part of your church life. Also, we are grateful to have Luan, who just basically keeps our committee together. We're very grateful. Thank you, Luan, for everything you do to keep us on track and going. So without that, let's get into this. We're going to go back and do a quick review of our Stewardship Through Storytelling Part 1 with Robin Skula. Robin is with us tonight. From the Presbytery Foundation. She led that presentation back on April 20th. And she's just, for those of you who were not there, and even if you were there, just to give a recap of that program. So Robin, I'm going to stop the share and go out to you. Well, actually, before I do that, let me just say, then we're going to jump into a couple different examples of what our members around churches have come up with in terms of successful storytelling programs. And some of those within social media. We even have some on old-fashioned print, and of course, video, now that we're in the digital age. So some very unique and different video presentations as well. And then by the end, we'd like to just take a few questions, or if you have some ideas and thoughts of your own, we'd love that and appreciate that. Just for your information, we are recording this session in case you have to duck out early or just want to come back and be able to review it at a later date. We'll let you know when that video is available. So with that, Robin, I'm going to turn it over to you to take the screen and go ahead and let you present.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be with you. And it was a joy to be with you in April and talk about storytelling and stewardship. I'm going to try to just recap a little bit the top of the presentation that I did. Because I know some of you were there and I don't want to bore you too much. And I also heard some really interesting framework for storytelling, for developing a story that I want to share with you when I was at the Lilly Endowment meeting in Indianapolis. So let's see, go ahead and start sharing. And okay. So essentially what we're talking about with storytelling is really borrowing some practices, best practices from the nonprofit world. And this is largely your competition these days for stewardship dollars, because people think of stewardship now as stewardship of their money, and not necessarily in a biblical sense. They might think of it, back in the old days when I was raised Baptist, we gave 10% of our income to the church. It was that specific. But I know people now who are saying, yes, we're giving 10% of our income among these 5 charities, one of which is my church. So you have to remember that these days you do have some competition. People do not give anymore, at least out of a sense of obligation. So you're going to have to pull them in, and you're going to have to give them reasons to support your church. You're going to have to help them remember why they love their church. And there's something that you've got with them that that nonprofits would just love to have, and that's a lot of time with your donors. So they're hopefully in church every week, or watching online every week, or at least interacting often with the church. So you have lots of opportunities to share your message. You also have theology on your side. I am not a theologian, so I will leave that topic to actual theologians. So in this one, we did an exercise where we talked in groups. I also shared a story from my own life that I'm going to actually skip tonight. And so we can get to this point. What I want you to think about when you're talking about your church is what your church is known for. So the idea when you're talking about your church and you're thinking through possible stewardship stories, if your church went away tomorrow, what would be missing from your community? So I'll use my own church as an example. My church is known for music and the arts. We have arts programs quarterly, and our music program is very, very good. We're known for providing a home for Kentucky Refugee Ministries, which has offices in a building that we own. We also have a program called Stitch, which works with refugee women to teach them sewing skills so they can create and sell items for income. We also have a really wonderful preschool that is embraced in the community and very loved by church members and non-church members. We have had a large youth program. That's where some of the struggles in our church are at the moment, but it's still ongoing and it's very good. We are known for our connections in the congregation and the ways that we support each other. I live in Indiana, and the story that I was going to share with you earlier was when I came home from Spain last year, my dog died while he was being boarded while I was in Spain. He was 2 years old. And so when I came home, this horrible news, people crossed from Kentucky into Indiana, drove 20 minutes one way to bring us, and they paid a toll. And they brought us cookies. They brought us, flowers, cheese baskets. They called. The sense of community in my church is really strong and beautiful. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of churches have in common, that the church was, you often hear people say the church was really there for me. And they're not necessarily talking about the pastor. They may be talking about people that they know, a group that they're involved with, the choir, whatever it is. So that's what you're looking to evoke. And your members, you're looking to remind them of that sense of community that they have at their church, that they may not really have that anywhere else. We are known for a partnership that we have in Nicaragua. We've made trips there. And the Nicaraguan community has actually come to visit us in Louisville, which is really neat. So we also have a mission statement, and I think it's a really beautiful one, and I really like it. My church is Highland Presbyterian Church in Louisville, and I like the way that we talk about our statement. That I even love that it's, we teach, we question, we learn. It's a church in which it is okay to question, which I really like. We sing, we laugh, we pray. And so when I'm looking to when I was chair of stewardship, it was before we had this, but if I were chairing stewardship now, a lot of my messages would be around hope. And it would be around the hope that we have in God, the hope we have in Jesus, the hope that we share with each other, the hope we have for our community. And that's probably what a lot of my stewardship theme would be around. So if I were looking for people to tell stories, I'd be looking for stories of hope, and I'd be looking for them to emphasize those stories. One of the other things that you'll see in a lot of churches, it's not uncommon, is there are groups and silos. So we had youth parents, a very connected tight group. The youth, very connected tight group. Not necessarily connected with the rest of the congregation, which is not great. And it's something we're working to try to fix as we can. We have a very tight knit and now growing choir. And how much are they integrated within the rest of the church? And so you have to think about when you're looking for stories, you want to be sure that you're picking people from different groups, so that if I'm in the choir, I'm going to hear a story from somebody in the choir who I know, who I trust, who is inviting me to participate more fully in the church by giving. So you all know this, but a lot of people, when they think of church, they think of that 1 hour a week. But your goal with storytelling is to remind them that that building is busy practically every day. And that it's not just a building, that there are many ways the church works in the community and people see each other. There's some opportunities here with things that might happen in your church, just to kind of get you thinking about these things. We have a card game group. We have a knitting group. We do not have a PW group, which actually kind of surprises me. We have off and on had an older adults group. At one point, the children's choir parents, and I was one of those, would sit together on Wednesday nights where our children were in choir, and then they tried to organize us into doing something meaningful, but frankly, we just wanted 45 minutes to sit in silence. So, or talk to each other or go get a cup of coffee. So it was a nice idea, but sometimes people just really want to be. So as you think about this, think about the groups in your churches. One of the most effective things we did when I was serving as stewardship chair was we got the youth to pledge. We asked the session to pledge, and then we went after the youth. And then a youth stood up in front of the congregation and held a whole bunch of pledge cards that were filled out by other youth and challenged all those adults to pledge. I mean, if the youth are doing it, gracious, can't we as adults? And that was very effective. And he was also very enthusiastic, and everybody just loved him. So when you're thinking about these groups, this is what you really are aiming for, is you want the right person to say the right thing to the right group. So we're not only talking about a minute for mission that is given from the pulpit on Sunday morning. You're also taking opportunities when people are gathered to talk to them about this. So, for example, we have a lovely British woman who is in the choir, and we all know anything that is said in a British accent, we're going to take more seriously, and probably do. So we had her deliver a pitch for stewardship to the choir members at their regular Thursday night. They would have, I think it was once a month, they would have a time when everybody would bring desserts, and they would have fellowship after the choir practice. So she asked for a few minutes to talk about stewardship. Because one of the things we discovered was that there was a fair number of choir members who thought that their singing was their stewardship. So we were trying to get them to understand that you can't pay bills with a song. So I think she was successful in that, and inviting them to participate in a different way than they might have. So that's really that sweet spot. You need to figure out who you want to say and what you want them to say. So that's what you're looking for. And if you hit that sweet spot, you're gonna do pretty good. I will even tell you that at one point when I was chair of stewardship, we have an attorney on our stewardship team, and I dearly love Clyde, because Clyde will approach anybody. He does not care. He's been an attorney his whole life, and he's just got a lot of chutzpah. And there was another attorney who we could see we all had the sheets, and you may or may not do this in your congregations, but we would hand out what we call the sort of the live month list. So that's last year, but not this year. People who pledged last year, but didn't pledge this year. And we would work our way through them, and then we would call them. And Clyde spotted this one year. There was a particular attorney who he knew, and he said, "This is ridiculous. He absolutely should be pledging. He's here every week, and he's not giving, he's not pledging." And I happen to know that firm is very successful. He's a partner. There shouldn't be any issue here. So Clyde called him, and we got pledged. And in that case, that really was the right person saying the right thing. Now, I don't think Clyde talked about hope. So you can take or leave that however you like. But sometimes the right person talking to the right person results in some good things. So what is the right thing? What's the right thing to say? It's really different for every person. In this case, Clyde called another attorney, and we were able to convince them to participate more fully in the church. Someone who they relate to, someone who is really sincere, of course. And I would say you want to try to fit the general theme, the mission of the church. So again, that idea of hope is something lovely for us to try to weave in. You're going to see later on, it sounds like in this meeting, you're going to see some information and examples of storytelling in churches. But here were a few that I saw that I liked. And this is literally just Googling and coming up with some that I found and I really liked. So this is from a newsletter. And this is a couple that had joined the church. And why they joined, what their story is, and I really loved it. I thought it was just a really nice example, and I like that they have a photo. This one I really liked a lot because this is really thinking outside of the box. This is not a member telling a story. This is someone who has benefited from the food pantry. So they have so Paul Jennings, who is apparently running the Abundance Food Pantry at this church, started talking about some of the stories that he heard from some of the people who were receiving benefits from the food pantry. And I thought that was just really lovely. And they only used first names to protect their identity, which I think was great and very respectful. But I like that because if you think about it, nonprofits are always telling impact stories. So this really is an impact story. Then a couple more here. These are from Florida. This one is really neat to me because this is a lady who's 95. And a lot of times when we're telling stewardship stories, we're seeking that young family with 2.5 kids who's, they're just adorable, and we want to get them up there to talk about that. But I love Marie's story because there are many, many times when we sit in church beside someone who is maybe a generation or two ahead of us, and we don't know their story. They've just always been there. There are people in my congregation who I don't know how they found the church. I just assume they've always been there. And I'd like to hear more of their stories. And I think you need to be sure we don't overlook that generation because I think they're really important. And then this was another one from the same church. It's a lovely story about a woman who came. She moved to Florida. She found the church, and it felt like home to her. And the church had done a really nice job of welcoming her. So I like that a lot. So where and how, and they're gonna get some good examples when you're doing this a little bit later and later in the session. But yes, from the pulpit, but also your newsletter, social media. If you have a podcast, If you're on Twitter or think about different ways to share that story, not just in one place, not just from the pulpit, because audiences are so dispersed these days. And regular church attendance is somewhere around one time a month is now considered to be regular. So you're not going to get people every Sunday necessarily. So if you've got a really great Minute for Mission story, put it on your website, put it in your newsletter, have it told from the pulpit. It's a very rare person that's going to see all of those. But if you put it all of these different places, you've got a chance at more people seeing it. So that's about what I wanted to present tonight. I'm about at my 15 minutes. So I'm going to stop sharing and we'll go from there.
Robin, thank you very much. Yes, that brought back a lot of memories and a lot of my notes that I was looking at earlier here tonight. So thank you again for that. Very, 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 very interesting there. Let's move on to the, we'll sort of take off from that. And as we go in here, all right, play from this slide. There we go. Get into some of these stories. We'll talk about three different media approaches, social media, and then print and video. I know social media feels sometimes like a double-edged sword with a lot of what goes on out there, but really social media can be used very well by churches. Our church has used it a lot for membership outreach, but then we realized also our members are carefully following some of our approaches, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook. And it helps for them to be notified of events coming up, or even to know what we're doing in mission work or different programs around the church. So while we all know the pros and cons of social media, it does have a value to the churches. We're going to cover that. We're going to talk a little bit about, yes, print, the traditional print stories that can be circulated, whether in the church or outside of the church. And of course, video. And I'll just say here on video that it doesn't have to be hiring an expensive production company and having to go out and have it filmed and done. It can be simply done on an iPhone or your smartphone, that a video and at a mission trip or a mission project, a video with somebody at the church just talking about their experiences. So that's what we're going to talk about a little bit, what these resources, how they can be used, which ones are maybe more practical, and how some of these people have done it. So we'll move right into that. Carl, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a bit about the Facebook in this presentation from Bethesda Presbyterian.
Lawan, do you want to do the
yeah,
social
actually,
media?
The social media pieces
Yeah,
are mine. Good
Good,
evening,
okay.
everybody. I'm Lawan. I do a little bit of communication for National Capital Presbytery, and I serve with Stewardship Committee as a staff person. So these are both posts from Instagram. These are not Facebook posts. These are Instagram posts. I just wanted to give you all an idea how to do Instagram very, very simply. From Bethesda, what we see is they are doing obviously their stewardship campaign, and someone just snapped a picture of the presenter with a little bit of the background of stewardship. And these are just quick, easy ways to share your stories, in my mind, more consistently and very quickly. I'm sure this was on someone's phone. So again, you don't have to have a professional photographer. You don't have to have a software. This usually, Instagram really works from somebody's phone. So whomever is doing your content, your social media management should be able to snap a picture quickly. A few lines for Instagram. As you can see, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Treasurer. A few lines to grab folks' attention. And this is more for your members. So there's certain kinds of content you want to post. Some posts are for your members to keep them engaged and encouraged. This post from Chevy Chase, I could just be scrolling, and it's more or less letting the world know, not Chevy Chase, Clarendon, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the top. Clarendon does a gardening program. which would attract community and neighborhood participation if that's something that interests you. What I want you to also see is they also thank those who serve in that ministry. So this social media post is serving two purposes. It's letting folks know, reminding their own community of one of the things that they're known for. I've been following Clarendon for a while, and they've had this gardening team where they plant vegetables as part of their ministry among the community for quite some time. Again, very simple, very quick, another way to let not just your congregation, but the community at large know one of the things that's important to your congregation and your member. Okay, now we can go to my Facebook. Next slide, Dave.
Yep.
Okay, again, same principle applies. The difference with Facebook is you can give a little bit more content. Instagram doesn't like a lot of words. You can put a lot of words, but it doesn't really like a lot of words. So the same thing applies with your Facebook post. I encourage you to use your social media channels to show your community being your church and your at-large community. I'm going to tell you, a huge part of my job is social media. I can tell every last one of you from your churches exactly how active you are. I can tell you what I think your interests are, where I would like to actually go visit sometime, based on how active you are and how engaging your short posts are. That it says, oh, if somebody asks me a question, do you know anybody who's working on building projects, Habitat for Humanity? Facebook is going to tell me, actually, we have about 3 or 4 churches. So if that is something that interests you, I'm going to connect you with these churches. So in addition to what's going to be offered here later on in ways to share your stories and to show the community how important you are, what's important to you, as Robin mentioned, use your social media channels. Very simple. And all of these photos, someone just snapped and post it, right? And you can tag people. That's the other thing. Always tag one of my influencers there, and tag all the important people. So who are the important people? Another organization, perhaps it's the sponsoring organization, another church that perhaps showed an interest. The folks, once you have their permission, that are actively participating in it, tag those folks. That stuff goes on those folks' pages. Other people say it. So you're able to have a broader connection and share what's important to you, why you're important to the community in which you serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Lon. Very good. Very, very helpful, I think, for people to remind people about this, the impact of social media and everything. So again, social media, print, video. Now let's go on to look at some of the print ideas. And this is Carl's, where you're coming in there. So Carl, I'll turn it over to you for this impact story.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Great to be with you. I am going to share a little bit on this this story and the next, although I am not the one who shared it. I really want to express so much gratitude for some of the incredible examples that came in, and for some of the members of our team who reached out to get these examples. The people who provided these stories are not necessarily with us tonight, so I'm going to convey their words and some of the feedback. What we wanted to do for each of these examples is go through this rhythm of 3 things we'd like to say. One is what's the purpose of the resource that we've been given in our sharing. The second is the level of difficulty. And the third is how they did it. And so we're going to be pretty brief on each of these so we can get through some really amazing resources. And the ones that we can't get through, we're going to have in the follow-up, the PDF. We're going to add anything we need to do to that last slide that you'll see in a little bit. So this one is an impact story. It's from a committee member of ours, June Aiken from Warner Memorial. The purpose of this resource is an impact story. It's an impact story is a personal experience about what is actually happening inside of the church, or because of the church. Who is there what affected them, and why it matters. And this story is about Oswin. It's a 14-month-old who stood transfixed during a cello and a violin duet. It's short, but it's beautiful, I think. And the takeaway here is, and these are the words, we want everyone to have a front row seat to know they are a beloved child of God, welcomed and included in the life of the church. So in just 3 paragraphs, they nailed it. So where this morphs into a stewardship article is halfway through. This story starts to poke the reader in the arm saying, hey, you and your generosity are why this was possible. So the second page expands to a more expansive story of the church. It shows the numbers of those lifted up through the church's giving. In just a few words, it lifts up worshiping 72 times during the year, educating 86 children, hosting 14 organizations, supporting mission partners here and abroad. They've affirmed that they have done great things. They're a brilliant place to be generous. And then they've made this invitation to do more. So June says this level of difficulty was on the easy side of it. And she did not, but the church used Canva to produce this.
All right.
That is it. Now, oh, it's me again, right?
Yes, here we are.
Here we go. Narrative budget. This is also from June Aiken at Warner Memorial. So the purpose of this resource, the narrative budget, is the story of your last year. This is related to stewardship because it focuses unapologetically on the story because of the budget. So budget, the line item budget is what we think about. It shows an actual representation of our financial activities, right? It's in accounting. Super useful. We Presbyterians adore line item budgets, but we love them so much that we use it as a tool on a much wider scale than perhaps it was originally intended. We've asked it to tell a story. We use it for, encouraging giving. Just not the right tool always. It never pretended to do those things. So we enlist its extroverted sibling, the narrative budget. So that's your storyteller. It shares the same DNA as its sibling, but it's the artsy of the two siblings. It's the one that brings colors and actions, memory, and it also brings some hope. So you can see here how Warner shows the numbers in that pie chart that are fed from the budget, but it spends most of this space talking about the ministry categories, how the funds were spent, the impact, and then it shows the hopes and the priorities for next year's story. Level of difficulty here, June's going to say medium to high. How they did it, they had 2 volunteers for this one in particular. One volunteer used the Stewardship Navigator at stewardshipnavigator.com. There is a tool there where you can make online your narrative budget. So they used that to allocate the financials into the activities. They wrote the text and then chose photos. That second volunteer she mentioned used Quark Express for the page layout. Don't know what it is. Sure, it's amazing. I'm sure everyone uses it, but I can't tell you more about Quark Express. Maybe someone else would be able to if that comes up in the Q&A. Thanks. That's narrative budget.
All right. Great. Thank you, Carl. And then we have a thank you member story and thank you. And I think this is your last session here, and then we can move on past the print.
I think I heard people say it better be. Okay, this is the member story and thank you. By far one of my very favorites. The purpose of this resource, it tells a story about Edna. It's a past member, someone who has passed away. It makes her special and relevant to those people there today. It tells us how much she loved us. And then the stewardship kicks in and thanks her for this bequest so that Edna gets to still work here. I'm just going to read a tiny bit because it is pretty amazing. First sentence, I didn't know Edna Martin, but I wish I had. It goes on to describe the meaning she had to us here and the meaning we had to her, but it ends with this full paragraph. Edna went home to be with the Lord on August 27th, 2002 at age 82. She never married, but had 2 cousins who lived in Missouri. So most folks who knew Edna said she had no close family. I've thought about that phrase, no close family. The more I've thought about it, the more strongly I feel that Edna Martin had more close family than most of us will ever have. And most of her close family was centered at her beloved church. Yes, Edna remembered her family, her church family, and her will. And you and I were a part of Edna's family. So that is from a church outside of our presbytery. I thought it was powerful because it brings in stewardship, a beautiful story about people before us, the legacy, and giving through planned gifts. It was super easy, very low difficulty. And how we did it, it was a member of stewardship who just typed into a computer, turned it into an article. Now I'm done.
No, that's great. That's you're right. That's how simple it can be if you have the right story. It's very powerful. Thank you, Carl.
Mhm.
All right. As we get back into this, now we're going to take a look at the video side of this, what people can do on the video. We have a video here. I believe this is going to be Jim who's going to share his experience here. I can run the video, Jim, but if you want to give background to it, Jim Feather is on our committee here from Vienna.
Sure. Let me just maybe introduce it. This is several years old now, but it so struck me that I wanted to find it again and share it with the group. I tried to go back to our person who runs the stewardship program on staff at the church to find out exactly how this was done, and she didn't have the details. It's that date. It was probably from like 2016 or 17. When you see this, you'll get a sense of what went on behind it. One was a survey of members in the church to anonymous, which of course you would expect when you see what it is, you'll understand why. And then putting together the presentation of that you'll see here in a minute. This is an example of something that I view as, Carl shared an example from Warner that besides telling the story, described what they had been able to accomplish with the gifts that they had been given. This is an example that to me is intended to build enthusiasm, excitement, and imagination as to what a church can do with increased giving. The challenge that was presented to the members as background is tell us what your annual salary is, tell us what 10%, a tithe of what your salary is. The data were collected, and then this program was put together. And I think it's just an exciting thing, and hope you can be inspired by it. And then we'll follow up briefly afterwards.
Great. Thank you, Jim. I'm going to show this. I was so excited having to watch it like 3 times in a row. So it's great. And I'm going to expand the All right,
All right.
back to the slide here.
At least on my end, we lost the audio, but it was really just the music behind it. So it looks fancy, and it, you know, Vienna has some resources to have somebody come in and do it for us. That's why our person Nina Graves didn't know exactly how it was done, but something like this could be done in a more simple fashion using a tool like PowerPoint, because you can, you know, do word effects and sweeping in of texts and so forth, put music behind it. I understand that the format that, or the program that Carl mentioned before, Canva, can be used for something like this. Takes a little bit more effort, but I think it's very impactful as well. So it's no doubt it was a little more difficult. The purpose was pretty clear. I think I described that, to get people to imagine what the church could do with the giving increasing to a tithe. So anyway, that's but what I can tell you about it. It's stuck with me for so many years that I wanted to resurrect it. Fortunately, I was able to find it again this many years later. But something on a simpler vein, I think, could relatively easily be done. And you could use it in other ways for imagining other things as well, program-specific things as opposed to overall budget or pledge campaign things. So anyway.
Great. Thank you.
I saw a question from Robin, said, so what happened? Everybody didn't tithe, but we did undertake some additional giving needs, which actually did end up paying off our mortgages, the mortgage that we held, and we're actually able to expand some programs in the community that is still going on this many years later to reach out to some less fortunate people in part of the town of Vienna. So there's some exciting things that really did stem from this. So
that's great. Excellent. Good. All right. Thank you, Jim. We'll go to this second one. This is, do we have a sponsor of this?
I have the notes shared from
Okay.
the church that have been given to us. And if maybe I can set it up. And Dave, let's try when we do show the video. This is only 1 minute and 16 seconds. If you can keep unmuted, because that might, there are words on this one that might be helpful.
Yeah, sorry. Somebody was knocking at my door really loud, so I I was trying to avoid the noise. That's gone away.
That's the 7 o'clock start time.
Yeah, yep.
I've got dogs barking. So this one is an impact and thank you story. Actually, the next 2 videos are both in this vein from Arlington Presbyterian Church. The first one, the purpose of the resource is to say thank you and to show the importance and impact of music ministry, especially I think during and post COVID. I'll cover the difficulty and how to produce after we look at go to the next one, because they'll be the same. Do you mind rolling this one?
Yep, go ahead. Yep, I'll roll it. Oops, let me go to the full.
Dear APC, it's been a year that started with the music fading. Do you remember the first Sunday we couldn't hear each other singing? Thanks be to God, you weren't interested in keeping it that way. Thank you for keeping the music alive, for valuing the art of sound, for paying artists fairly, for creating a culture of there is enough, and investing in the ecosystem of Gillian Place. Thank you for showing up and sharing your time. Thank you for recording yourself singing, even though it's awkward and uncomfortable. Thank you for supporting my role as Minister of Music and affirming my call as an artist. Thank you for Zooming, for looping, for streaming and commenting. And thank you.
Thanks for the reminder of what YouTube is going to give to us.
Yeah.
So- So that was, I thought, a beautiful one about the impact of the church that has on us internally and locally. A thank you for it as well, and an appreciation for generosity. And the next video, if you can jump forward, is the same church, same producers, but for an external message about a mission that they support externally. This one is a minute, just over a minute. Can you roll that one, and then I'll give the difficulty levels?
Oh, I gotta skip through now. It's YouTube making me go through commercials, so sorry about that. Oh, no, here it is.
Thanks for that. Great videos. Actually, there was one that I think I might have.
It's pretty amazing that you put some seeds in some soil and you water it, and then
this is-
something grows.
This is the other one. This is the one from overseas about
some
wells.
local,
And we'll have this link
face-to-face
on.
lessons and projects for my class, and so
So you can check that out afterwards. That's the third one is I messed up with the links, obviously. So,
Okay.
but anyway, those are a couple of great examples from Arlington. Their level of difficulty, I'm guessing, was a medium. Those are pretty straightforward, video producing programs that are not hard to learn. To produce it, music minister Abby Madden created these through a combination of telephone footage and camera footage, and collected some still photos from volunteers and staff. They used Adobe Premiere Pro to do the editing of this footage, putting it together. And you could tell some of it was stock music, but that first one and some others they do is from their own music, which is absolutely fabulous. I would say that's just kind of A+. Those are great. In the interest of time, I'm going to do no segue and say, Dave, back to you.
All right. Thank you, Carl. Yes, you can see those are in reach of a lot of people doing that as well. So, okay, we have is this both these Falls Church, I believe?
No, I'm sorry. Here, the first one is Georgetown. I'm sorry. This is my church. This is a beautiful video. We were really trying to connect. We are very dispersed over DC, Maryland, Virginia. And with 1 hour on Sunday mornings, we're trying to connect. So we have people share from the pulpit their stories, why they're here, their connection and things like that. And we started to do these by video as well. It was especially important during the pandemic. This is a higher level of difficulty. Our music director is a closet documentary shooter, and he does the background music and everything. But if you would roll this one just for like a half a minute or a minute in the interest of time, just to see kind of the effect that he gives.
Okay.
Art is a gift. our talents are gifts from God. So how is it that I can use this gift that God has blessed me with in the service of the Lord, to comfort people, to entertain them maybe, or to take their minds off of negative things, or to even interpret the Bible, the Gospels, or Proverbs, or verses in the Psalms. I was a very fidgety child. Or when I was around 5 years old, I vividly remember sitting in church and wiggling a lot. Mom was also an artist. So she pulls out this pad and paper, starts drawing things on it, and gives it to me and say, now it's your turn. You draw something. And I would just get lost in drawing. And I just found it was a wonderful place to be. Art was always a part of my life. To me, it was like breathing. I could not imagine not having paper and pencil and paints to create things. What I like to do is imagine in my head, if I were creating something, if I were going to invent a flower, what would I do? What would it look like? I'm just the hands, but there's a divine inspiration that seems to just flow. But you have to be open to it, and you have to almost go back to the way you were when you were a child, where you just didn't worry about judging. This is what I want to do. This is how I want it to look. Some people may like it, some people may not, but that's okay. Sometimes it almost feels like meditation, because when I'm working on something, I'm really focused on what I'm doing. It's this direct line, this communication that we're having, being open to receive what the Spirit is moving me to do.
Well, you're quite, that's more than a hobby. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and he's done that for a lot of us. Cynthia, she's a State Department. I guess she's retired from there. How would I have known this about her? Because I only see her when someone else is speaking. And I learned all these things. Like he did mine while I was kayaking across the Chesapeake. Everyone's got their own something that he films us for, and it's a hoot. And he does the music as well. That is high end, and he, by the way, would love to share his skills, like hints on how to do filming and stuff like that. The other thing I want to share before I hop off is Falls Church has knocked it out of the park with this. They've done like big quantities of these, and they have two different resources we'll send in the follow-up. One is their a list of these that videos that they have done from people in the pulpit, from members. They're fabulous, and they have in the teens, but they also have some that are our stories. It has a bunch of them introducing, it's a stewardship program called Cloud of Witnesses Stories, part of their 2022 generosity campaign. The theme is joining the cloud of witnesses. And the scripture is from Hebrews: since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us run with perseverance the race that has been that is set before us. So throughout the year, we are featuring stories from our people about an important person in their own cloud of witnesses and how that person has made a difference in their faith journey. I just tapped into this before this webinar we're doing right now, and I'm sorry that I don't have more to show from it because it is that good. It's a bunch of videos of people from their church talking about people influencing them on their faith journey. It's good stuff.
And let me go ahead and play the one you have here.
Actually, in the interest of time, that's another from June. It's great reinforcement, but I don't think it's new. Is that okay if I?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's the cloud. There's a lot in there. I'm sorry. That one is also, let's, you can do whatever you want with it. I shouldn't.
Well, I can just show the example
Yeah,
of it, and then we can
perfect.
see, and we can just play 30 seconds of it. So, oh yeah, there's all these different clouds of witness. Okay.
Story about a person who influenced my faith journey. I think it's not overreacting when I say maybe this person made sure my faith journey continued after 8th grade. But we'll take a little time travel back. It's the person I'm talking about was a deacon in my church youth. Her name was Ursula, or Frau I. I grew up Lutheran in Germany. I was part of a very disenfranchised church youth. We did not like confirmation class. We did not like the way it was held. We did not reflect or share opinions. All we had.
So this is about 3 minutes, and it's clearly a straight head-on shot, Carl. So it's not a very complicated. And there's a bunch of these, correct? That's that they did. You're muted.
This is one style, and the other style, when they're talking about someone else who has influenced them, they're talking about stewardship or about whatever, is in people's living rooms, or it's outside, it's wherever their space is. And they're both very easy from an outsider like me looking in. They're simple and straightforward. Yes.
Wow. So they've got all these from the church, and then they've got, this is great. This is actually another, because this brings the level down quite a bit in terms of what people can do, and what, in fact, if you're already broadcasting your own church service, you probably have this camera view already in place.
Yep.
So,
High impact, low effort.
right. Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm done. I'd skip the next one, which is the War Memorial. It's really good, but we'll have it in the follow-up materials. It speaks for itself.
Okay. Yeah, because it's, well, this one's, yeah, okay. This one is only about 1:33, but we can go to the next one then. All right, so these are the additional samples. We're going to have these in the follow-up material. The cloud of witnesses, more of those. Imagine on Vimeo, water flows in Cameroon. I think we talked about that already. Give to a story in faith and lead, and these will all be links that people can get access to that after the session, and well, when we do the follow-up on this as well. So at this time, really, we're kind of in a question and answer, or at least be able to, if you can ask any of us that we're sharing tonight, maybe questions or even ideas or thoughts you might have. We can open up the mics. Juan, if you want to moderate that, if we have a question or chat.
Sure. Are there any questions? Dave, I think it's okay to stop screen share so we can all just look at
There we go.
one another. Does Vicky, are you? No, you didn't have your hand up. I was looking at something else. Does anyone have any questions that?
There was a question in chat from Vivian. I
I'm
think it was
sorry.
about how these are used, and how and when are they shown. And I mean, you know, I can imagine making them. We've got some people could do that, but when and how do you use them?
Does somebody in one of the churches want to take that? Carl or Dave? How are you all using these in your churches?
Go ahead first, Carl, and then I'll jump in.
I'll give our answer, but also Robin sees more churches than I think all of us combined. But our church would use it as kind of a link in a newsletter or something like that. And once we saw, like, once we were moved by the very first one that we heard from the pulpit, we all wanted more. And so we were waiting to get the next one. So it wasn't like we had to beg people to watch it. It was a different story than if it was just so engaging that people were asking, hey, when's the next one coming? That kind of thing. But in general, a lot of times you'll see great links in a newsletter or on social media, and it's the exact same thing. Kind of to Lawan's point, we all learn differently. And so putting the same thing in 3 places is actually not even redundant. I mean,
Right.
from the reader's purpose. Dave?
Yeah, we're just wading into video, and we've been using them initially in settings like social fellowship settings. We have a chili cook-off that we had a lot of attendance to, and so we've shown 1 or 2 videos there. So it's in a fellowship situations, as well as we've actually developed. We are putting in a new screen in our sanctuary to be able to. We have one, but it has to be portably set up, and we actually have one that'll be pulling down from the ceiling to be able to show videos during the service. And then, of course, on social media, once we get it going, we're now looking at doing several with some of our mission partners as well.
And
Robert or Jim?
from a Presbytery standpoint, we show all our social media now. If anybody remembers, we used to do it during a Presbytery meeting. It was our mission highlights. But all our videos on our YouTube channel, on our website, and we share them all on social media. Robin, did you have anything you wanted to add? Anything different?
No, I would probably say, you just kind of put them wherever, put them all around, put them all over the place, and develop some short links if you're going to put them in a printed newsletter or a dedicated YouTube list or something that people could look at and go, oh, I gotta go check this out. They can remember it.
Short link?
I think there's also an opportunity to use that technique to lift up stories of people who may not be in church, perhaps your homebound members, and to insert that in the service. Then people are like, it's Jane, when they see the person that they haven't seen in church for a period of time, but bring them into church and help them be a part of the ongoing life of the congregation that way too.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's a great idea.
I do too. Yeah.
There was a church I visited in Colorado, a small church that had was offering worship by Zoom, and they had a Zoom kind of living room where the members, as they came in, could stop and talk to the people who were on Zoom before they went into the worship service. So everybody got a chance to say hi and interact with them, which I thought was really lovely.
Are there any other questions, burning questions? We really want to honor your time. We're only 4 minutes after 8, but we really like to honor folks' time. This tape will come out probably May 25th. All the links we will probably have right underneath the video so that all the links will be live. We will also have the links come out because this was a recording. It was done in a PowerPoint. The PowerPoint will also post. So you'll have access to everything. And it will probably post on the Presbytery's website by May 25th. Don't hold me to it. We got a Presbytery meeting. It's going to take me a little minute to get some of this together. But I'm going to give it back to Dave to close us out. But I really do want to thank you all for your time. Thank you for joining us. Special shout out to Robin. Thank you so much for coming back, joining us to give us an overview of your April 20th presentation.
Yes, thank you, Robin. And I thank you everybody for coming tonight. In fact, we continue to have these kind of presentations throughout the year. We've been doing a lot on Zoom and through this video medium, just because started in the pandemic, we could add the webinar function on there, and a lot easier than trying to get together. And so while we do some live events, we also will continue to do these kind of video events, which can be more accommodating for people who are either working or can't attend something during the day. So look for more. We already starting to look into our fall schedule, and a lot of that will also involve fall stewardship campaigns and other topics that are really of interest to improving generosity. So with that, thank you, Carl, Pat, Jim, and Lawan, everybody for contributing tonight, and enjoy your rest of your evening.